She took the job to escape her grief. But when she stepped into the forgotten halls of Windermere House, she heard voices whispering her name. Voices that hadn't spoken in over 100 years. What happens when the ghosts of a house remember you, but you don't remember them? And what if your second chance at redemption means never leaving? This is the story of Helena Marlowe, a woman with nothing left to lose, a house with too many secrets, and 5 lost souls waiting for the one who promised she'd return. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment below telling us, where are you watching from? And, do you believe in second chances from past lives? Let's begin. Helena Marlowe didn't believe in signs anymore. She used to, back when she taught history to wide-eyed students and wore cardigans that smelled like library books. Back when her husband, David, was alive. Back when she believed that the past held answers, not ghosts. But that was before the silence. Before the days blurred together and her home became just a place where clocks ticked loudly and meals were forgotten in the oven. So when the letter came, neatly folded, with her name handwritten in ink, she didn't question it. It was an offer, a temporary housekeeping position at a countryside estate. Nothing glamorous. The pay wasn't great. But the location was remote, and more importantly, no one there would know her as the widow who stopped living. That's how she found herself standing in front of Windermere House, suitcase in hand, coat fluttering in the cold spring wind. The house loomed like something out of a forgotten painting, tall, proud, and tired. Ivy crawled up its stone walls. The windows, though clean, seemed like eyes that had seen too much. And the front door, large and dark, looked almost expectant. A man stepped out from the shadows of the porch. Thomas Bellamy, early 30s, with dark hair and soft eyes that seemed older than his years. He smiled politely, his voice warm as he greeted her. "You must be Helena. Thank you for coming. I know it's a bit far from town." Helena nodded, brushing a strand of gray from her cheek. "It's quiet. That's what I was looking for." Thomas offered to take her bag, and as they stepped inside, the air shifted. Not cold exactly, but something different. Like the breath of a place that had been still for too long. Inside, the house was a mix of restoration and memory. Some rooms were stripped bare, with scaffolding and dust sheets. Others were frozen in time, with velvet drapes and faded wallpaper. The scent of old wood and lavender lingered, faint and haunting. "You're the first person to live here since I bought it," Thomas explained as they walked. "Most people said it was too far gone. But I saw something in it. Thought it could be a spiritual retreat one day. A place for healing." Helena gave a soft smile. She didn't mention that she didn't believe in healing anymore. Her room was on the 2nd floor, overlooking the garden, if you could call it that. It was overgrown and wild, with a stone fountain covered in moss. Something about it stirred a strange ache in her chest. That night, Helena unpacked slowly. She placed a photo of David by the window and lit a candle. Outside, the wind howled, and the house creaked with the weight of its own bones. Sleep didn't come easily. She dreamed of fire, of children's laughter turning into screams, of a hallway filled with smoke, of her own hands, reaching, but not far enough. She woke before dawn, heart pounding, candle still burning beside her. The days passed quietly. Helena cleaned, organized, and sometimes read in the library, where dusty volumes lined the walls like sentinels. She spoke little, and Thomas didn't pry. But the house whispered. At first, she thought it was her imagination. A name drifting through the halls when no one else was there. A scent of rosewater that came and went. The feeling of being watched, not with malice, but with recognition. Then came the piano. On her 3rd night, she heard it. Soft notes, played gently, from the drawing room downstairs. A lullaby. One she almost remembered. She crept down the stairs, her hand trailing along the banister. The door was ajar. The room was empty. But the melody lingered in the air, as if the piano itself remembered her fingers. She didn't tell Thomas. The next morning, She found a photograph in the library, tucked into an old volume about Victorian education. It was cracked and sepia-toned, showing a group of children in front of Windermere House. And in the back row, a woman. Her face partly turned, but unmistakable. It was her. Not someone who looked like her. Not vaguely similar. It was Helena. She touched the photo and felt something stir deep inside, a memory not hers, and yet fully hers. That night, the whispers returned. Only this time, they said her name. Helena. Helena didn't tell Thomas about the photograph. Not yet. She kept it tucked into the back of the book, where it had waited for someone to find it again. Maybe her. And though she tried to dismiss it as coincidence, her dreams said otherwise. The same dream returned the next night, a corridor choked with smoke, small hands reaching out from under a wooden door, and a soft voice calling her name, Lenora. This time, the voice didn't sound frightened. It sounded relieved. The house began to feel less like a house, and more like a memory. A place she hadn't lived in before, but one that clearly remembered her. One morning, while dusting the hallway on the second floor, Helena noticed something odd. A door that hadn't been there before. It was narrow and arched, set into the paneling near the end of the corridor. She could have sworn it hadn't been there the day before. Its knob was brass, worn smooth with time. It resisted at first, then opened with a low creak. Inside was a small nursery. Toys, books, faded curtains. A rocking horse that swayed just slightly as she entered. It smelled of lavender and soot. She stepped inside carefully. There were names written in chalk on the wall, children's names. 5 of them. The handwriting was small, uneven, and heartbreakingly earnest. On the far side of the room, a child's drawing hung from a crooked nail. It showed a tall house, 5 stick-figure children, and a woman in a long dress. The woman's hair was gray. Her eyes were kind. Below the picture, a name was written. Miss Lenora. Helena stepped back, heart fluttering. Lenora, she whispered, testing the sound on her tongue. Something cold brushed her shoulder. She turned quickly, but no one was there. Only the faint scent of rosewater, and a soft giggle from the hallway. That night, Helena sat with Thomas in the study, a cup of tea warming her hands. He was repairing an old lamp, the soft glow of the fire reflecting in his eyes. "This place," she began carefully, "do you ever feel like it remembers things?" He looked up. "All old houses do, don't they? Floors creak, pipes groan. They hold on to what they've seen." "Yes, but what if it remembers people?" Thomas paused. "Are you saying it remembers you?" She didn't answer directly. "I found a photo, in the library, of a woman who looks exactly like me, from over 100 years ago." His brow furrowed. "That's unsettling." "There's more," she continued. "I found a nursery, with names, and drawings, and the children. I think I've seen them, not clearly, but I feel them." Thomas leaned forward. "You mean ghosts?" Helena hesitated. "I don't know what I mean. I don't believe in that sort of thing. Or I didn't." He nodded slowly. "I've had dreams. Since moving in. Always the same woman, always the same voice. Calling me back. It started the night I signed the deed." Helena's fingers tightened around her teacup. "What did she call you?" He looked her in the eye. "Henry." The name rang in her head all night. She didn't sleep. Instead, she wandered the halls, barefoot and silent, guided by something deeper than logic. She found herself in the West Wing, a part of the house Thomas had said was structurally unsafe. But the doors were unlocked. The wallpaper peeled like old skin, and dust coated everything like a fine snowfall. At the end of the hallway, there was another door. This one was different. Painted white. Ornate carvings. A brass plate with a name. Lenora's room. She entered. It was untouched. A bed with lace sheets. A vanity with perfume bottles. A mirror that had cracked in the center but still reflected her face. On the desk, a journal. The cover was soft leather, aged and worn. Inside, the handwriting was fluid and elegant. April 3, 1892. The children are restless. Little Samuel says he saw a man in the garden again, the one with the dark coat. I told him not to worry. This house is safe. I made a promise to them all. That they would be loved. That they would be protected. That no matter what happened, I would never leave. Helena closed the book gently. Her hands trembled. She felt as though the floor had shifted beneath her. Like she was living someone else's life, or remembering her own. As she turned to leave, the cracked mirror flickered. Just for a moment. Behind her reflection stood 5 children. Quiet, pale, watching her. And one of them smiled. Helena didn't scream. Not when she saw the children. Not even when they vanished the moment she turned to face them. She stood in the silence of Lenora's old bedroom, heart pounding, the journal still warm in her hands. Outside, the night pressed against the windows, thick and still. It felt as if time had paused. Back in her room, she placed the journal beside her candle. She didn't open it again that night. Instead, she sat by the window, watching the moon climb over the twisted trees of Wintermere's garden. Her thoughts didn't settle. They wandered, through foggy memories, half-formed feelings, and the echo of a lullaby she didn't know how she remembered. When sleep finally came, it wasn't restful. She was standing in the nursery. The 5 children were there, facing her. One by one, they whispered. "Lenora, you said you'd come back. We waited. You promised. You said it wouldn't burn." The last child, small, red-haired, and holding a worn stuffed rabbit, stepped forward. "You can fix it this time." Helena woke with tears on her cheeks. Over breakfast, she told Thomas everything. She expected disbelief, or awkward silence. Instead, he listened carefully, stirring sugar into his tea. "I believe you," he said simply. "You do. I told you. I've had dreams. I keep seeing myself holding a lantern in this house, calling out for someone. Always the same name, Lenora." He looked at her. "And sometimes, I think I'm not just dreaming. I think I'm remembering." They sat together in quiet understanding. Then Thomas reached into the drawer beside him and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. He laid it on the table. A small silver pendant, shaped like a key. "I found this in the fireplace downstairs a few nights ago. I didn't tell you because, honestly, I thought it was just another weird piece of this place. But now," he paused, "does it mean anything to you?" Helena touched it. The moment her fingers brushed the metal, something sparked in her chest. A memory. A voice. Her own voice, but younger. "If I don't make it back, this will lead you to them. Keep it safe, Henry." She pulled her hand back as if burned. "I gave this to you," she whispered. "In another life." Thomas looked shaken. "Then maybe, this isn't just about ghosts. Maybe we're here because we were meant to come back." That afternoon, they explored the West Wing together. The nursery was as Helena had left it. Still, quiet, faintly warm despite the chill outside. Thomas stood by the names on the wall. He read them aloud. Samuel, Lottie, Grace, Ezra, Lily. Helena's breath caught. "I know them," she said. "Not from here. From before." As they turned to leave, the room dimmed slightly. A child's voice spoke, soft and close. "Don't leave us again." Helena turned. Lottie stood near the door, her dress faded pink, her eyes wide and luminous. "Please. We waited so long. You have to help us." Thomas froze. "You see her too?" Helena nodded. Then the others appeared, slowly, gently, not like movie ghosts, but like children stepping out from behind a curtain. They surrounded Helena, not with fear, but with hope. They touched her hand, her sleeve, her heart. "You didn't mean to leave," Ezra said. You tried, Grace added. You loved us, whispered Samuel. We remember, Lily finished. We always did. That evening, Helena returned to the library alone. She pulled out every book about Windermere's history, searching for something, anything that might connect the dots. One volume, thick and brittle with age, held an article dated April 1892. Fire tragedy at Windermere Orphan Asylum. A fire broke out in the early hours of April 12 at the Windermere estate, recently converted into a private orphan home by philanthropist Mrs. Lenora Whitcomb. Authorities report 5 children perished in the blaze. The body of Mrs. Whitcomb was never recovered. Her husband, Henry Whitcomb, had died months earlier from pneumonia. Locals claim the house has been cursed ever since. Helena read the passage again and again. So she had died. The children had died. The house had burned. But why? She flipped to the next page. There, tucked behind a folded corner, was a faded photograph, the same as before, but now with a handwritten caption. The children of Lenora's house, weeks before the tragedy. Her hand shook. In the corner of the photo, barely visible in the shadows, was Thomas. Not quite him, but close enough to feel like a memory. Back upstairs, Thomas waited at her door. I think the house is trying to help us remember, he said quietly. Why now? Helena asked. Why us? He looked at her with gentle certainty. Because it's not finished. We never said goodbye. We never made it right. He opened his hand. Inside was the key-shaped pendant. It glowed faintly in the candlelight. I think this unlocks something. That night, Helena stood in front of the mirror in Lenora's room. She didn't expect to see herself. She expected something ghostly, something else. But what she saw was both. Her own face. And Lenora's. Overlapping. Blurring. She wasn't just remembering. She was returning. The next morning, Helena and Thomas stood in the cellar, the air cool and damp, the scent of earth and time thick around them. The pendant, shaped like a key, rested in Thomas's palm, catching faint rays of light from the narrow cellar windows. He had traced every wall, every cabinet, every floorboard for a keyhole. Now, standing in front of a rusted iron door, Helena felt it before she saw it. The outline of something, barely visible beneath the vines and dust clinging to the stone. She pressed her hand against it. The door gave a low groan, and opened inward. Inside was a small chamber. Not a hiding place, not a dungeon, something in between. The air was dry, undisturbed. The walls were lined with shelves, and on those shelves, toys, letters, books, drawings, carefully arranged, like a shrine. And in the center, a small wooden box. Thomas lifted it, reverently. Inside were 5 lockets, each etched with a name: Samuel, Grace, Ezra, Lottie, Lily, and a 6th one, larger, with an inscription. For Lenora, who kept her promises. Helena stared at the box, her breath catching. These were meant to be given after, she whispered. After they left this world. Thomas nodded. But they never made it out. Neither did you. She closed her eyes. And suddenly the memory came, not as a dream, but as something real, something rooted in her bones. She was in the hallway. The smoke rising. The children screaming. She had gathered them in the nursery, wrapped them in blankets, tried to lead them out. But the back door had been locked. Someone had locked it from the outside. She remembered running to the cellar, calling for help. And then nothing. Black. Back in the present, Helena stepped back from the box. The fire, she said. It wasn't an accident. Thomas looked up at her. Someone wanted to stop you. From what? Helena turned to the wall. Letters lined up on the shelves, many from grateful townsfolk, some from faraway places. One envelope caught her eye. It was sealed in wax, never opened. Inside was a letter dated March 29, 1892. The handwriting was harsh and pointed. You think you can take them in, raise them in your image, teach them to speak freely, to believe in nothing but your kind heart and books. But this house will not stand on heresy. God will decide their fate. Not you. Not your softness. The end is near. You will answer for what you've done. No signature. Helena felt cold spread through her chest. It was someone from the town, she whispered. Someone who thought what I was doing here was wrong, unnatural. Thomas clenched his jaw. But you weren't doing anything wrong. I was giving them love, Helena said. A home. A future. They punished you for it. That night, she returned to the nursery with the wooden box. The 5 children stood in a semicircle, waiting. Helena placed the lockets in their hands, one by one, speaking their names softly, as if tucking them into bed. Samuel, Grace, Ezra, Lottie, Lily. Each child held their locket close to their heart. You remembered, Lottie said, her voice barely above a whisper. I tried to come back, Helena said. I didn't know how. But I'm here now. And I won't leave you again. You don't have to, Ezra said. A soft light began to fill the room, not harsh, not blinding. Warm, like sunlight filtered through old curtains. Are you ready? Helena asked. They nodded. But there's one more thing, said Samuel. What is it? You have to forgive yourself. Later, Helena sat in the garden, the stars wide above her. Thomas joined her quietly. They'll be free soon, she said. He nodded. And then what? I think I have to go too, Helena replied. Thomas turned to her. You mean, leave the house? I mean leave all of it. Let it go. The guilt. The weight. I've been holding it so long, even without knowing. He looked down. What if I can't? What do you mean? He hesitated. What if this is the only place I feel real? What if I'm not supposed to leave? Helena took his hand. We came back to finish what we started. But we don't have to stay trapped. Redemption means moving forward. Thomas looked at her, his expression unreadable. But what if I'm only whole here? That night, Thomas disappeared. Helena searched every corner of the house. The west wing, the cellar, even the woods beyond the property. No sign, only the soft sound of the wind, and the house holding its breath. In Lenora's room, she found the mirror covered, and on the vanity, the pendant, left behind. The morning light barely touched Wintermere's windows. The house felt stiller than ever. Not silent, but expectant, like it was waiting for something to be completed. Helena walked the halls alone, the pendant clutched tightly in her palm. She had searched every floor, every room, every shadow for Thomas. But he was gone. No note, no message, only the covered mirror in Lenora's room, and the pendant she had once given him in another life, now resting in her hand again. She returned to the nursery. The children were there, quiet as always, standing near the chalk wall. They looked older somehow. Or maybe she was just seeing them more clearly. Lottie stepped forward. He stayed behind. Helena frowned. Where is he? Samuel looked down. In the place where memories hide. Show me, she said. They led her to the attic. Helena had never been up there. Thomas had said it was too dangerous. Rotten beams, loose tiles. But now, the narrow stairs felt solid under her feet, as if the house itself was allowing her passage. At the top, the door opened easily. Inside, the air was thick with dust, light filtering through a stained glass window shaped like a rose. Trunks and old furniture were pushed against the walls. And there, sitting on the floor, head resting against the window, was Thomas. He looked up as she entered, eyes distant but calm. I remembered, he said. What did you see? He gave a sad smile. Everything. I was Henry. You were Lenora. We built this place together. You believed in giving those children a home. I believed in you. But I was sick. I died before the fire. I never got to help you. Helena knelt beside him. That wasn't your fault. But it felt like it. Even now, it does. He looked at her. Maybe that's why I came back. To finish what I couldn't. You did help, Helena whispered. You brought me here. You believed me. You stayed when no one else would. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the final locket. One she hadn't seen before. Etched into it were the initials L and H. For us, he said softly. So we'd never forget. That night, Helena returned to the garden. She lit 5 candles and placed the children's lockets in a circle. The 6th locket, hers, rested at the center. The children appeared silently, bathed in soft light. No longer ghostly. Just peaceful. You kept your promise, said Ezra. We can go now, said Lily. But you have to say goodbye, Grace added. Helena's voice trembled. I love you all. I always did. I'm sorry it took me so long. Lottie touched her hand. You came back. That's what matters. The air grew warmer, and one by one, the children turned toward the trees, where a golden light shimmered between the branches. They walked forward, unafraid. Then they were gone. Only the candles remained. Helena stood in the silence. Then, behind her, Thomas spoke. They're free now. She turned. So are we. He looked at her, conflicted. Are you leaving? I think I have to, she said. The house. It's not ours anymore. He nodded. But it was once. And maybe it will be again. He took her hand. Will I remember you? He asked. I hope so, she said. They stood like that for a moment. 2 souls who had found each other twice. Then Helena turned toward the house one last time. She walked through each room, her fingers brushing the walls, the furniture, the stories carved into the wood. In the foyer, she placed the journal back on the shelf. In the drawing room, she lit one final candle. And in Lenora's room, she uncovered the mirror. Her reflection stared back, older, wiser, complete. And for a second, another face overlapped hers. Younger. Stronger, smiling. She left Windermere at sunrise. The house didn't creak that morning. It stood quietly, proud, at peace. A year later, the roses at Windermere House bloomed again. No one knew who planted them. The old iron gate remained closed. Ivy returned to the walls. The gravel path disappeared beneath a soft layer of moss and wildflowers. From a distance, the house looked as it always had, quiet, forgotten, waiting. But something inside had changed. In a small coastal town 100 miles away, Helena Marlowe sat in a bookstore, surrounded by stacks of her first published work. It was called The House That Waited. It wasn't labeled as fiction, though the publisher gently suggested it be reframed as a personal reflection on grief and healing. Helena didn't argue. She had told her story the only way she knew how. Honestly. Readers called it haunting, gentle, transformative. Some wrote letters saying the book helped them grieve their own losses. Some asked if the house was real. Helena never answered those questions directly. She only replied with a line from the book. Some places are made of wood and stone. Others are made of memory. And some are made of both. She lived quietly now. She taught classes again at the local community center. History, mostly. But her students often stayed late to ask about spiritual topics, second chances, and lives that might have come before this one. She never claimed to know the answers. But she knew the right questions to ask. Some nights, when the wind blew just right, she'd light a single candle and sit by her window. And in her dreams, she still saw them. Lottie with her drawings. Ezra in his boots 2 sizes too big. Grace brushing her doll's hair. Samuel humming to himself. Lily holding a book upside down. And sometimes, just behind them, Thomas. He never spoke. But he smiled. One afternoon, Helena received a letter without a return address. Inside was a single photograph. It showed Windermere House from a distance. The garden, overgrown, was now filled with candles. Hundreds of them, glowing in the dusk. On the porch sat a man in a long coat. He was looking directly at the camera. She didn't need a signature. She knew it was Thomas. On the back of the photo was a message in familiar handwriting. Still watching over them. Just like you taught me. Helena returned to Windermere once more. She didn't go inside. She simply stood at the edge of the garden, breathing in the scent of jasmine and stone. The wind passed softly over her shoulder. For a moment, she thought she heard a child's laughter. Not sad, playful, alive. She smiled. Then she turned and walked away, leaving the house to rest. Back inside, the candle she had lit a year ago still sat on the drawing-room mantel. It flickered once, and in the mirror above the fireplace, the faintest image shimmered. A woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Standing beside her, a man with a warm smile. Watching, remembering, grateful. They were never forgotten. Because she came back. And this time, she stayed long enough to set them free. Sometimes, we carry stories that aren't entirely ours. Memories we don't understand. Guilt we never earned. But healing can come, even after 100 years. Especially when someone is brave enough to remember. Helena didn't just clean a house. She cleaned the past. And in doing so, she found herself. If this story moved you, please subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell, so you never miss another tale like this. And now tell us in the comments, do you believe a house can remember the people who once loved it? We'd love to hear where you're watching from, and what you believe about second chances. Until next time, thank you for listening.